hold me until dawn.
The acrid smell of burnt circuitry filled Marcus Chen's nostrils as he wedged himself deeper under the maintenance panel of the atmospheric processor. 3 years running this repair shop on Nexus Station, and he'd never gotten used to that particular stench. It reminded him too much of the crash that had taken Sarah. "Papa, I'm hungry." His daughter Lily's voice drifted through the shop's open doorway, pulling him from memories he tried not to visit during working hours. Marcus slid out from under the machinery, his coveralls streaked with grease and coolant, and found his 6-year-old perched on a supply crate, swinging her legs. "Give me 5 more minutes, sweetheart. Then we'll grab dinner at Kowalski's." "You said that 20 minutes ago," Lily pointed out with the devastating accuracy only children possessed. Before Marcus could respond, the shop's proximity alarm shrieked. He moved instinctively, pushing Lily behind the counter as the main entrance exploded inward. Not from an explosion, from sheer force. A figure crashed through, slamming into his tool wall with enough impact to embed several wrenches in the metal bulkhead. Marcus grabbed the plasma cutter from his workbench, then froze. The intruder wasn't attacking. She, and it was definitely a she, despite the scales, was curled in a defensive ball, obsidian wings wrapped around her body like armor. Crimson blood, too bright to be human, seeped between plates of midnight blue scales. "Please," the figure whispered, and her voice carried harmonics that made his teeth ache. "Please, they're coming. I can't." Her wings shuddered, revealing a face that was almost human. If humans had scales that shifted from deep blue to purple along sharp cheekbones and eyes like molten gold. Recognition hit Marcus like a gravity hammer. Every screen on the station had been broadcasting her image for the past week. Princess Theranis of the Draconian Empire, missing from the diplomatic convoy, wanted for questioning in the assassination of her own father. "Papa," Lily whispered from behind the counter. The princess's golden eyes snapped to the sound, pupils dilating to slits, then widening again as she registered the child. Her wings drooped. "A youngling. I didn't know. I'll leave. I won't bring danger to a nest." She tried to stand, failed, and collapsed back against the ruined tool wall. Marcus should have called station security, should have grabbed Lily and run, should have done anything except what he actually did, which was to set down the plasma cutter and grab the emergency medical kit from beneath his workbench. "How many are coming?" he asked, already pulling out the biofoam injector. The princess blinked at him, confusion flickering across features that were both alien and achingly expressive. 3, maybe 4. Palace guards. She hissed as he pressed the injector against the worst of her wounds, visible through torn fabric that looked like it cost more than his shop's monthly rent. "Why are you helping me?" "Because you're bleeding on my floor and my daughter's watching." Marcus glanced at Lily, who had emerged from behind the counter despite his silent prayers she'd stay hidden. "And because anyone running that hard from palace guards probably has a good reason." The proximity alarm chirped again, multiple contacts, moving fast. "Back door," Marcus said, making a decision that would either save or damn them all. "Lily, grab your emergency pack." His daughter, trained by 3 years of life on a station where quick evacuations weren't uncommon, darted to retrieve the bag they kept ready. The princess tried to stand again, wings scraping against the walls of his too small shop. Marcus ducked under one wing, slipping his shoulder beneath her arm. She was lighter than he'd expected, hollow bones like earthbirds, but the wings made maneuvering awkward. "Why?" she whispered again as they stumbled toward the rear exit. "Ask me when we're not about to die." They burst into the service corridor as the shop's front entrance disintegrated under plasma fire. Marcus didn't look back, just ran, half carrying the wounded Draconian, while Lily's small feet pattered beside them. The princess's blood left a trail, but the service corridors had a dozen branches. With luck, it would buy them time. "Maintenance shaft," he gasped, yanking open an access panel he'd used 100 times for legitimate repairs. "It leads to the old mining sector. Abandoned. They won't think to look there immediately." The princess's wings folded impossibly tight as she squeezed through the opening. Lily followed without hesitation, his brave girl, too used to running and hiding since her mother died. Marcus sealed the hatch behind them, activated his shop's lockdown protocol remotely, and prayed to whatever deity watched over single fathers, making terrible decisions. The maintenance shaft was pitch black, but the princess's scales emanated a faint bioluminescence, casting everything in an ethereal blue glow. They crawled for what felt like hours, but was probably minutes, the sound of pursuit fading behind them. Finally, they emerged in a storage bay that hadn't seen use since the station's mining days, 40 years past. Marcus activated an emergency light stick, revealing rows of empty containers and obsolete equipment. The princess collapsed against a crate, her breathing labored. In the harsh white light, he could see the full extent of her injuries, plasma burns, claw marks, and something that looked suspiciously like teeth marks on her left wing. They weren't palace guards, she said quietly. They wore the armor, but they weren't. She trailed off, golden eyes focusing on Lily, who stood watching with the solemn intensity of a child who'd seen too much. "What's your name, youngling?" "Lily Chen." "What's yours?" "The news says you're Princess Theranis, but that's not a real name, it's a title name." Despite everything, the princess's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Clever youngling. My nest name is Thara. Just Thara." "Why did they hurt you, just Thara?" Marcus started to intervene, but Thara raised a scaled hand. "Because I discovered something I shouldn't have. Because my uncle wants the throne and I'm in the way. Because—" her voice broke, harmonics discordant. "Because I trusted the wrong people." "Papa says trust is earned in actions, not words," Lily announced. "You bled in our shop, so now you're our responsibility." "Lily," Marcus began. "That's what Mama would say," his daughter interrupted, and Marcus's heart clenched. Sarah would have done exactly this. Taken in a wounded stranger, consequences be damned. It's what had made her the best trauma surgeon on the station. It's what had gotten her killed, staying behind during the reactor breach to save others. Thara's scales shifted color, deep blue rippling to purple and back. "Your mother sounds wise." "She's dead," Lily said matter-of-factly. 3 years, 2 months and 14 days ago. Papa fixed things before, but now he fixes machines because they don't die when they break. The silence that followed was broken only by the distant hum of the station's life support. Marcus couldn't look at either of them, focusing instead on pulling more medical supplies from Lily's emergency pack. When had his 6-year-old become so perceptive? When had he become so transparent? "I'm sorry," Thara whispered, and her hand, scaled but warm, touched his as he reached for the biofoam. "For your loss. For bringing danger to your nest. For—" An explosion rocked the storage bay. Marcus grabbed Lily, pulling her behind a container as the main door glowed cherry red. Someone was cutting through. "They found us," Thara said unnecessarily. She tried to stand, wings spreading in what Marcus recognized as a threat display. "I'll draw them away. You run." "Like hell." The words came out before Marcus could stop them. "Lily, remember what we practiced. Hide and seek, level 10. His daughter nodded and vanished into the maze of containers with the efficiency of a child raised on a station where knowing how to hide could mean survival. Marcus grabbed a piece of rebar from the defunct equipment, testing its weight. Not much against plasma weapons, but better than nothing. "You're insane," Thara hissed. "They'll kill you." "Maybe, but they'll have to work for it." He met her golden eyes. "Nobody hurts kids on my watch. Nobody." The door gave way. 3 figures in palace guard armor stepped through the molten entrance, plasma rifles raised. But Thara had been right. Something was off about them. Their movements were too predatory, lacking the disciplined precision of royal guards. The leader, a scarred draconian with scales the color of dried blood, smiled with too many teeth. "Princess," he drawled, the title dripping mockery. "Your uncle sends his regards. Vorak." Thara's wings mantled, a deep rumble building in her chest. "Still doing Kethar's dirty work, I see." "It pays well." Vorak's slitted pupils tracked the blood trail on the floor. "You're injured. Weak. This doesn't have to be difficult. Since when has Kethar ever preferred easy?" Thara's scales began to shimmer, heat radiating from her form. Marcus stepped back instinctively. "Since you became more trouble than you're worth." Vorak raised his rifle. "The Empire needs stable leadership, not a princess who asks inconvenient questions about mining operations and missing colonists." Missing colonists. Marcus filed that information away, assuming he lived long enough for it to matter. "Drop the weapon, human," one of the other guards ordered. "This isn't your fight." Marcus tightened his grip on the rebar. "It became my fight when you brought it into my shop." Vorak laughed, a sound like grinding stone. "Brave little mammal. Stupid but brave. Kill him." The guard swung his rifle toward Marcus. Time slowed. Sarah used to say trauma happened between heartbeats, in the spaces where decision met action. Marcus saw the plasma rifle's charge building, saw Thara's wings tense for a strike she was too injured to complete, saw his death reflected in the guard's visor. Then a wrench hit the guard in the face. "Leave my papa alone." Lily stood atop a container 20 feet away, another tool in her small hand. "Lily, no." The guard she'd hit staggered, more surprised than hurt, but it was enough. Marcus swung the rebar with every ounce of strength 3 years of grief and rage had given him. It connected with the guard's helmet, sending him crashing into his companion. Plasma fire went wide, melting through containers. Thara moved. Even injured, even bleeding, she was magnificent. Her wings swept out, catching Vorak across the chest and sending him flying. Her tail, which Marcus hadn't even noticed until now, whipped around to disarm the second guard. She breathed, and the air itself seemed to ignite. Not true fire, but superheated air that made the guard's armor smoke. "Tharanis Ketra Volum," she roared, and though Marcus didn't understand the words, he understood the meaning. "I am still your princess," but the effort cost her. She collapsed to one knee, scales dulling from vibrant blue to ash gray. Vorak recovered quickly, pulling a curved blade from his belt, traditional draconian crystal steel, sharp enough to pierce scales. "The old ways?" He laughed again. "You honor me, princess." Marcus didn't think. He moved, putting himself between Thara and the blade. The crystal steel punched through his shoulder like it was made of paper. Pain exploded along every nerve, but he'd felt worse. He'd felt Sarah's hand go cold in his. Everything else was just sensation. "Interesting," Vorak said, twisting the blade. Marcus bit back a scream. "The mammal has scales of a different kind. Papa." Lily's voice broke through the pain. "Stay hidden, sweetheart," Marcus gritted out. Blood, red, human blood, mixed with the draconian crimson on the floor. "Just like we practiced." Vorak yanked the blade free and Marcus's legs gave out, but as he fell he grabbed the scarred draconian's armor, using his weight to pull Vorak off balance. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Thara's tail swept Vorak's legs, sending him crashing down. Her clawed hand found his throat. "Yield," she commanded. Vorak spat something in Draconian that needed no translation. Station security alarms suddenly blared, not the gentle proximity warnings, but full evacuation alerts. Someone had finally noticed the firefight in the abandoned sector. Vorak's eyes widened. Whatever his orders, they apparently didn't include getting caught by neutral station authorities. "This isn't over," he snarled, then clicked something on his armor. He and his conscious companion dragged their unconscious third member back through the melted door, vanishing into the corridor beyond. Marcus pressed his hand to his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. "They'll be back, yes." Thara crawled to him, her hands surprisingly gentle as she examined the wound. "Why did you? You could have died. You should have died. Lily needed me not to." "That's not—" She stopped, scales rippling through a spectrum of colors he couldn't interpret. "No one has ever— I'm poison to anyone near me. Everyone who's tried to help me has—" Her voice cracked. "Papa!" Lily appeared as if from nowhere, her emergency pack already open. "Medical kit, remember? Just like Mama taught us." Marcus wanted to tell her to stay back, to run, but his vision was starting to gray at the edges. Thara took the kit from Lily with steady hands, her clinical efficiency suggesting medical training. She worked quickly, sealing the wound with biofoam and synthetic skin. "Your mother was a healer?" Thara asked Lily, who nodded solemnly. "She taught you well. She said helping people was the most important thing," Lily replied. "Even when it's dangerous. Especially when it's dangerous." Thara's golden eyes met Marcus's over his daughter's head. Something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps, or recognition. Two beings who'd lost everything, trying to protect what little remained. "We can't stay here," Marcus managed, though sitting up took enormous effort. "Security will lock down this sector. They'll find us." "I have a safe house," Thara said quietly. In the Twilight District, it's not much, but the Twilight District's dangerous, Marcus interrupted. Crime syndicates, black market dealers. Exactly. The last place anyone would look for a princess, her lips curved in that not-quite smile. I've been hiding there for a week. Well, until today. Marcus looked at his daughter, who was carefully repacking medical supplies with the focus of a child trying not to cry. They couldn't go back to the shop. It was compromised. Their small apartment above it was no safer. And Lily? God. Lily had thrown a wrench at a draconian death squad. His brave, foolish daughter, who'd inherited her mother's inability to walk away from someone in need. Okay, he said, but we do this my way. Lily's safety comes first. Agreed. Thara stood, testing her wings. Can you walk? Do I have a choice? She extended her hand. There's always a choice. You could turn me in, collect the bounty, keep your youngling safe. Marcus took her hand, surprised by its warmth. Lily would never forgive me. And, he paused, searching for words, Sarah would have helped you. It's what she did. What she was. Then I owe her a debt as well. Thara helped him stand, her wing extending to steady him. The Twilight District is 3 levels down. Service corridors? Too obvious now. We'll take the merchant lifts. More crowded, easier to blend. Thara gestured to her wings, scales, and distinctly non-human features. I don't exactly blend. Marcus grabbed a maintenance tarp from the supplies. You do now. Lily, help me. Together they fashioned a makeshift cloak that covered Thara's wings and most of her scales. With the hood up and shoulders hunched, she could pass for any of a dozen alien species that frequented the station. Marcus kept his bloodied arm hidden under his own jacket, Lily between them as they made their way to the merchant sector. The lifts were crowded with evening shift workers and traders. A few gave them curious looks, but Nexus Station had seen stranger groupings. Marcus kept his expression neutral, just another mechanic heading home with his daughter and a client. Thara stayed silent, her natural height making her loom even hunched over. 3 levels down, the atmosphere changed. The Twilight District earned its name from the perpetual dim lighting. Official story was power conservation, but everyone knew it was easier to conduct certain business in the shadows. Neon signs advertised everything from legitimate restaurants to less legitimate pleasures. The air smelled of ozone and exotic spices. Thara led them through winding alleys, past suspicious looks and knowing nods. Finally, she stopped at an unmarked door squeezed between a pawn shop and what was generously called a hotel. She pressed her palm against a hidden scanner, and the door clicked open. The safe house was small, a single room with basic amenities, but clean. More importantly, it had security shielding that would block most scans. Thara immediately collapsed on the narrow bed, her wings finally relaxing. Marcus settled Lily on the room's only chair, then leaned against the wall, exhaustion hitting him like a gravity well. Thank you, Thara said quietly. Both of you. She stopped, scales shifting to a deep purple he was beginning to recognize as emotional distress. I haven't had anyone to trust in so long, I'd forgotten what it felt like. What really happened? Marcus asked. The news says you killed your father. The news says what my uncle wants it to say. Thara's claws extended, then retracted. A nervous gesture, he realized. My father discovered something. About the mining operations in the outer systems. Colonists weren't just missing. They were being sold. To who or what, I don't know. But when he confronted Ketha, she trailed off. Your uncle killed him, Lily said with the devastating directness of childhood. Yes, and framed me for it. I have proof, hidden in the palace archives, but I can't access it while in exile, and anyone who might have helped me has been eliminated or turned. She looked at them with those golden eyes. Why do you believe me? You don't know me. Marcus considered the question. You bled defending yourself, not attacking. You tried to leave when you saw Lily to protect her, and... He touched his bandaged shoulder. You could have let me die. Would have been easier for you. But you didn't. That's hardly proof of innocence. Maybe not. But it's proof of character. He met her gaze. Sarah used to say you could tell everything about someone by what they did when they thought no one was watching, or when watching cost too much. Thara's scales shimmered, cycling through colors he couldn't interpret. Your mate was wise. She was. The words came out rougher than intended. Lily yawned, the adrenaline finally wearing off. Marcus moved to pick her up, but his shoulder protested. Thara stood instead, her movements careful. "May I?" she asked. Marcus nodded. Thara lifted Lily with surprising gentleness, her wings creating a warm cocoon as she settled the child on the bed. Lily mumbled something about dragons being softer than they looked, then fell asleep between one breath and the next. "She's remarkable," Thara said softly. "Brave like her father." "Like her mother," Marcus corrected. "I'm just trying to keep up." They stood in comfortable silence, watching Lily sleep. The dim light from outside painted patterns through the room's single window, neon bleeding through security mesh. Somewhere in the distance, station life continued, oblivious to the drama playing out in this small, hidden space. "What's your plan?" Marcus asked eventually. "I didn't have one," Thara admitted. "Beyond staying alive long enough to find allies, but they're all dead or turned. My uncle was thorough." "So what, you just hide here forever?" "Until someone kills me, more likely." She said it matter-of-factly, without self-pity. "Ketha can't let me live, I know too much." Marcus thought of Sarah, of how she'd faced death with the same calm acceptance, more concerned about him and Lily than herself. He'd hated her for it then, that serene surrender. Now seeing it reflected in alien features, he understood it differently. Sometimes fighting meant accepting the cost. "There has to be another way," he said. "Why do you care?" Thara turned to face him fully. "You've done enough. More than enough. Take your youngling and disappear. I'll make sure Ketha doesn't connect you to this." "How? By dying quietly?" Her scales flickered. Anger, he thought. "By dying with honor." "Fuck honor." The profanity slipped out, but he didn't take it back. "Honor doesn't raise daughters. Honor doesn't fix things. You want to stop your uncle? Then stop him. Don't just give up." "I'm not giving up. I'm being realistic. I'm one person against an empire." "No," Marcus said, surprising himself with his certainty. "You're one person with proof of crimes against colonists, on a neutral station with independent media, with security footage of palace guards attacking civilians." He gestured to his shoulder. "And a witness willing to testify." Thara stared at him. "You'd testify? Publicly? It would make you a target." "I'm already a target. Might as well make it count." "You don't understand. Ketha has resources, influence, and you have the truth." Marcus met her golden eyes. "Sarah used to say the truth was like water. It always found a way through, no matter how many walls you built. Your mate had a lot of sayings. She had a lot of wisdom." Marcus moved to the window, watching the neon-soaked streets below. "The question is, are you willing to fight for it? Or are you going to let your uncle win by default?" 3 days passed in the cramped safe house. 3 days of Thara healing, of Lily asking endless questions about draconian biology, of Marcus venturing out for supplies and information. The station's news feeds were saturated with footage of the terrorist attack on the abandoned sector, carefully edited to remove any trace of palace guards. His shop had been sealed, marked as a crime scene. Their apartment, off-limits. Marcus had managed to contact Kowalski, the gruff restaurateur who'd been Sarah's friend. The old Polish expatriate had agreed to spread word among the merchant community. The real story, not the official one. But influence moved slowly in the Twilight District, and Cathars moved faster. On the 4th night, everything changed. Marcus woke to Thara's hand over his mouth, her golden eyes wide with alarm. She pointed to the door. Shadows moved beneath it, too many to be random passers-by. He rolled off the makeshift pallet, reaching for Lily, but his daughter was already awake. That terrible alertness of a child who'd learned danger could come at any moment. The door exploded inward. Not palace guards this time, mercenaries in mixed armor, species Marcus couldn't identify in the chaos. Thara's wings spread, shielding them as plasma fire erupted. The security shielding held for precious seconds before failing in a cascade of sparks. "Window!" Thara shouted. Marcus grabbed Lily, sprinting for their only exit. Thara's tail shattered the security mesh, her wings following to clear the opening. It was a 3-story drop to questionable safety, but staying meant certain death. "Hold tight," Marcus told Lily, who buried her face in his neck. They jumped. Thara's wings caught them halfway down, the membrane straining but holding. They crashed into a waste bin, garbage cushioning the impact. Marcus's shoulder screamed, the barely healed wound tearing open, but they were alive and moving. "This way," Thara gasped, one wing dragging at an awkward angle. They ran through the maze of alleyways, the sound of pursuit never far behind. The Twilight District's residents melted away, wanting no part of whatever drama the strangers brought. They turned a corner and found themselves facing a dead end, a service hatch sealed with security locks Marcus didn't have time to bypass. "Papa," Lily whispered, and he heard what she heard, footsteps converging from multiple directions. Thara turned, placing herself between them and the alley entrance. Her scales had dulled to the color of old steel, exhaustion written in every line of her body. "When they come, you run, I'll hold them." "We've had this conversation," Marcus said, setting Lily down to examine the lock. "Nobody's dying for anybody else today. You can't bypass that in time." "Watch me." His fingers flew over the lock's interface, Sarah's voice in his memory. "Every system has a weakness, Marcus. Every wall has a door. You just have to find it." The mercenaries rounded the corner, 6 of them, armed and armored. The leader, a Vrixian with too many eyes, chittered something that might have been laughter. "Surrender the princess. You and the child go free." "Counter-offer," Marcus said, still working on the lock. "You walk away and I don't upload the security footage from 3 nights ago to every media feed in the sector." The Vrixian tilted its head. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" Marcus pulled out a data pad, showed them a frozen frame. Vorak's face clear as day, wearing palace armor while attacking civilians. Amazing what surveillance catches when you know where to look. It was a bluff, mostly. He had the footage, but uploading it from here would take time he didn't have. Still, the mercenaries hesitated. Then another voice cut through the standoff. "Enough games!" Kethar stepped from the shadows. The Draconian prince was everything Thara wasn't. Scales the color of burnished gold, wings that caught light like stained glass, presence that demanded obedience. But his eyes were cold, reptilian in a way Thara's never were. "Uncle," Thara said, and Marcus heard years of history in that single word. "Niece." Kethar examined them with clinical detachment. "You've led me quite a chase, and involved innocents, I see. How unlike you." "They're not involved. Let them go." "Oh, but they are. The mechanic assaulted palace guards. That's treason, technically." His gaze settled on Lily, who pressed against Marcus's leg. "And the child. Well, witnesses are so inconvenient." Marcus felt Thara tense, heat radiating from her form. "You wouldn't. I wouldn't have to, if you'd simply died as planned." Kethar's wings rustled. "For you always were too curious, Thara. Too human in your sympathies. Your father had the same weakness." "It wasn't weakness. It was conscience. In politics, they're the same thing." Kethar pulled out an ornate blade, crystal steel like Vorak's, but older, more elaborate. "Challenge me." Thara's scales flickered. "What? The old way. Single combat. You win, you go free. All of you. You lose." He smiled, showing too many teeth. "Well, you won't lose. You're injured, exhausted, and you always held back in training. And if I refuse?" Kethar gestured to the mercenaries, who raised their weapons. "Then things get messy. The human and child die badly. You die knowing you failed them." Marcus started to protest, but Thara's wing blocked him. "I accept." The lock clicked open. Marcus grabbed it, holding it closed. If they ran now, during the fight, but Thara caught his eye, shook her head minutely. She knew what he was thinking, knew and was asking him not to let her do this. "Thara, please," she whispered, "protect her." She meant Lily, but something in her tone suggested more. Protect the truth. Protect the innocent. Protect what mattered. The mercenaries formed a circle, trapping them in an arena of bodies and weapons. Kethar shed his ceremonial cape, revealing armor that looked both ancient and impenetrable. Thara had only her torn clothes and injured wings. They circled each other, predator and prey, though Marcus wasn't sure which was which. Kethar moved with casual confidence, testing Thara's defenses with lazy swipes. She dodged, but barely, each movement clearly painful. "You could have ruled beside me," Kethar said conversationally. The Empire needs strength, not sentiment. The Empire needs justice. Thara's tail swept low, forcing him back a step. The colonists you sold were necessary sacrifices. The Void Hunters pay well for live subjects. Their experiments will make the Empire stronger. Marcus's blood ran cold. The Void Hunters were legend, nightmare stories told in station bars. Ships that appeared from nowhere, took entire colonies, left nothing but empty worlds. If Kethar had made a deal with them— "You sold our people to monsters," Thara snarled. "I sold expendable resources for power." Kethar lunged, blade singing through air. Thara twisted, but not fast enough. Crystal steel carved through scales, drawing a line of crimson from shoulder to hip. "And I'll do it again." Thara staggered, one wing dropping. Kethar pressed his advantage, driving her back against the alley wall. His blade found her throat. Yield. Thara's golden eyes found Marcus's, then Lily's. Something passed between them. Understanding, perhaps. Or goodbye. "No," she said, and breathed fire. Not the superheated air from before, but real flames. White-hot, primal, forbidden. Kethar screamed, falling back with his perfect scales charred and smoking. Fire was taboo among Draconians, Marcus remembered, a last resort, a power that consumed the user as much as the target. Thara collapsed, scales going grey-white like ash. The flames had cost her everything. "Kill them all," Kethar gasped, his perfect voice now a rasp. The mercenaries raised their weapons. The hatch Marcus had unlocked burst open, and station security poured through. Real security, not corrupted guards, led by Commander Torres, Sarah's old friend, the one person on the station Marcus trusted absolutely. "Nobody move," Torres barked. "This is sovereign station territory. All weapons down now." The mercenaries hesitated. Kethar tried to speak, but his burned throat only produced hisses. "Interesting footage came across my desk," Torres said conversationally. "Palace guards attacking civilians, Prince Kethar consorting with known criminals, and now attempted murder in my jurisdiction." She smiled, all teeth. "You're under arrest, Your Highness." "You can't," one of the mercenaries protested. "He has diplomatic immunity." "Had," Torres corrected. "The Draconian ambassador revoked it about 10 minutes ago. Seems the High Council takes a dim view of princes who sell citizens to Void Hunters." She looked at Marcus. "You uploaded the footage." "Kowalski did," Marcus admitted, "to every feed he could find. The conversation about selling colonists was particularly damning. He'd been recording the whole time, datapad hidden but active. Sarah's voice in his memory. "Always have backup, Marcus. Always have proof." Kethar lunged for Lily, a last, desperate move. Marcus moved without thinking, the rebar he'd kept hidden swinging with desperate strength. It caught Kethar across his burned scales, sending him crashing to the ground. "Papa!" Lily wasn't looking at him. She was kneeling beside Thara, small hands on the Draconian's still form. "She's not breathing right." Marcus dropped beside them, his basic medical training kicking in. Thara's scales were cold, her breathing shallow. The fire had drained her, maybe fatally. "Medical team now," Torres barked into her comm. "Stay with us," Marcus told Thara, not sure if she could hear. "You won. It's over. Stay with us." Her golden eyes flickered open, focusing with effort. "The youngling?" "I'm okay," Lily said, tears streaming down her face. "You saved us. You used the forbidden fire and saved us. Worth it," Thara whispered. Then, so quiet Marcus almost missed it. "Hold me until dawn." The words, the same from the title, made Marcus's blood run cold. Not with fear this time, but with understanding. She was dying. She knew it, and she didn't want to die alone. He gathered her carefully, mindful of her injuries. Her wings, damaged and grey, still managed to curve around them. Lily pressed against Thara's other side, small hands gentle on cooling scales. "We're here," Marcus said. "We're not going anywhere." The medical team worked through the night. Station medical was good, but Draconian physiology was complex, and the damage from the forbidden fire was beyond their experience. Marcus and Lily refused to leave, camping in the waiting area, while doctors consulted specialists from 3 systems away. Commander Torres stayed too, coordinating the investigation that was rapidly becoming an interstellar incident. The footage had gone viral. Prince Kithar discussing selling colonists, attacking his niece, trying to murder a child. The Draconian High Council was in emergency session. 3 Imperial warships were en route, though whether to arrest or rescue Kethar remained unclear. "You did a dangerous thing," Torres told Marcus during the second hour of waiting. "But Sarah would be proud. Sarah would have done it better," Marcus replied, exhausted beyond measure. "Maybe, but she's not here. You are." Torres squeezed his shoulder. "The good one. The kid's just like her mom, isn't she?" Marcus looked at Lily, curled in an uncomfortable chair but refusing to sleep, keeping vigil for a draconian princess she'd known for less than a week. "Yeah," he said softly. "She is." Dawn was breaking through the station's viewport when Dr. Yanis finally emerged. The Terran xenobiologist looked exhausted but hopeful. "She's stable," he announced. "The fire, it's not just a weapon for draconians. It's a reset almost. Burns away damage to rebuild. But it requires incredible amounts of energy. She nearly depleted herself completely." "But she'll live?" Lily asked, hope bright in her eyes. "She'll live. But recovery will take time. Weeks, maybe months. And she'll need support. Draconians are communal. Isolation during healing can be fatal." "She won't be alone," Marcus said without hesitation. Dr. Yanis nodded. "She's asking for you, both of you." Thara looked small in the medical bed, scales still grey but with hints of blue returning at the edges. Monitoring equipment beeped steadily, reassuringly. Her golden eyes tracked their entrance, brightening when she saw Lily. "Youngling," she whispered. "The doctor says you're going to be okay," Lily announced, climbing carefully onto the bed. "But you have to rest and eat lots and let people help you." "Is that so?" Thara's gaze shifted to Marcus. "And will you help me?" "Someone has to make sure you don't do anything stupid like fighting princes in back alleys," Marcus said, aiming for light but hearing his own emotional investment. "The High Council sent a message," Torres said from the doorway. "Kethar's been stripped of rank, pending trial. Thara, you've been cleared of all charges. More than that, they're appointing you regent until the succession can be properly sorted." Thara closed her eyes. "I don't want it. The throne, the politics, the chance to stop the colonist trafficking," Marcus interrupted, "to hold the guilty accountable, to change things." She opened her eyes, meeting his. "I wouldn't know how. I was trained to rule, not to lead, then learn," he said simply. "Sarah used to say the best leaders were the ones who didn't want power, just responsibility. Your mate had a saying for everything, I know." Marcus managed a small smile. "But she was usually right." Lily yawned enormously, the nights of poor sleep catching up. Thara's wing, weak but determined, curved around the child. "Sleep, youngling," Thara murmured. "I'll watch." "You're supposed to be resting," Lily protested, even as her eyes drooped. "I am. This is restful." Within minutes, Lily was asleep, tucked against Thara's side like she belonged there. Marcus started to reach for her, but Thara's tail, mobile despite her exhaustion, caught his wrist gently. "Stay?" she asked. Marcus looked at her. Really looked. Not at the princess or the alien, but at the person. Exhausted, vulnerable, but with a core of strength that reminded him painfully of Sarah. Not the same. Thara was definitely her own person, but that same quality of giving everything for others, even when it cost too much. "Yeah," he said, settling into the chair beside the bed. "I'll stay." "The human, Marcus." She tested his name carefully. "Why did you really help me? The truth?" Marcus considered the question. "Because Lily would never forgive me if I didn't. Because it was right. Because—" He paused, searching for words. "Because for the first time in 3 years, I remembered what it felt like to fight for something instead of just surviving." "I remembered something too," Thara admitted. "What it felt like to trust, to not be alone." Her scales shifted, blue becoming stronger. "I haven't had that since my mother died." "How long?" 7 years. Poison, we think, though it was never proven. Kethar's mate was very knowledgeable about toxins. She managed a bitter laugh. "I've been alone in crowds ever since, until a human mechanic and his youngling decided to save me." "You saved yourself, we just helped." "No." Her tail tightened slightly around his wrist, warm and strangely comforting. You gave me something to save myself for." They sat in comfortable silence as dawn light filled the medical bay. Outside, the station was waking, normal people living normal lives, unaware that political landscapes had shifted in the night. The Draconian Empire would have a new regent soon, one who'd burned herself nearly to death rather than let innocents suffer. "What happens now?" Marcus asked eventually. "I don't know," Thara admitted. "The council will want me to return immediately, take up my duties, clean up Kethar's mess, but I—" She looked at Lily, still sleeping peacefully. "I need to heal first, fully, and I need help. To learn how to be what the Empire needs." "The Empire needs someone who cares more about people than power," Torres said from the doorway. She'd been quiet so long Marcus had forgotten she was there. "Seems like you've got that covered." A chime from the medical equipment indicated medication time. A nurse entered, efficient and professional, but she paused, seeing the tableau: Draconian princess, human child, and tired mechanic, looking like the galaxy's strangest family unit. "I'll need to administer." "Do what you need to," Thara said, but her wing stayed curved around Lily, protective even in her weakness. The nurse worked around them, clearly deciding not to disturb whatever was happening. As she left, she murmured to Marcus, "She's been fighting the sedatives all night, refusing to sleep, but now," she gestured to Thara, whose eyes were finally drooping. "Rest," Marcus told her. "We'll be here when you wake up. Promise?" The word was small, vulnerable. "Promise." Thara's eyes closed, her breathing evening out, but her tail stayed loosely curled around his wrist, and her wing remained sheltered over Lily. Marcus leaned back in the uncomfortable chair, exhaustion pulling at him. "You know this changes everything," Torres said quietly. "When she's healed, when she takes the regency, she'll need advisors, people she trusts. I'm a mechanic. You're someone who stood between a princess and a blade. That carries weight in Draconian culture, more than you realize." Marcus looked at Thara and Lily, sleeping peacefully despite everything. I have Lily to think about. Her safety would be guaranteed under a regent's protection, education, opportunity, a future beyond this station." Torres moved closer. "I'm not saying decide now, but think about it. Sarah would want you to consider it." Sarah, who died saving others. Who'd believed in doing the right thing regardless of cost. Who would have absolutely adopted an injured Draconian princess and somehow made it work. "I'll think about it," Marcus said. Torres nodded and left them alone. The medical bay quieted, just the steady beep of monitors and the soft breathing of two people who'd found safety in each other's presence. Marcus thought about the past 4 days. Had it really been so short? And how completely his carefully ordered life had shattered. But looking at Lily, safe and sleeping, and Thara, alive despite everything, he couldn't regret it. Sarah used to say the best things in life were never planned, never safe, never easy. They were the things that found you when you were brave enough to say yes. A soft chirp from his data pad, a message from Kowalski. "Shop's yours when you want it back. Fix the door." Also, half the merchant district is asking when the princess who breathed fire for a human child will be well enough for visitors. "You've started something, my friend." Marcus smiled despite himself. "Trust the station merchants to turn an attempted assassination into a romance story. Though, wasn't it, in a way? Not the romance of vids and novels, but something deeper. The romance of connection, of finding someone worth fighting beside, of discovering that broken people could still choose to be whole together." Thara stirred in her sleep, murmuring something in Draconian. Her tail tightened briefly around his wrist, then relaxed. Lily shifted too, burrowing closer to the warm scales. Marcus closed his eyes, letting exhaustion finally take him. Whatever came next, recovery, politics, the complexities of human Draconian relations, they'd face it together. It's what Sarah would have wanted. It's what he wanted, he realized with surprise. For the first time in 3 years, the dawn didn't feel like an ending. It felt like a beginning. Hours later, Marcus woke to voices. The Draconian delegation had arrived, 3 officials in elaborate robes, looking deeply uncomfortable in the sterile medical bay. They spoke in rapid Draconian, clearly expecting Thara to send the humans away for a private audience. Instead, she simply said, "Speak standard. My friends deserve to hear this." The lead delegate, scales a deep emerald, huffed disapproval. "Regent, The situation is delicate. The High Council requires nothing until I'm healed, Thara interrupted, sounding every inch the royal she'd been born to be. And when I do return, things will be different. Different? Marcus Chen will be my senior advisor on colonial affairs. His daughter will be under royal protection, with full education privileges. She looked at Marcus, a question in her golden eyes. He nodded slowly. And we'll be conducting a full investigation into the trafficking with public trials. The nobles will resist. Then they'll be replaced. Her wing tightened around Lily, who was waking up slowly. I've learned something important. The Empire's strength isn't in its traditions or its pure bloodlines. It's in people who choose to stand together, regardless of species or status. This is highly irregular, the Emerald delegate protested. So is selling citizens to void hunters, Marcus said mildly. Maybe irregular is what you need. The delegates exchanged glances, clearly out of their depth. They'd expected a weak, compliant princess. They'd gotten something else entirely. Someone forged in fire, literal and metaphorical. We'll convey your requirements to the council, the lead delegate said stiffly. Your recovery is, of course, the priority. They left with barely concealed relief. Thara sagged once they were gone, scales dulling with exhaustion. Senior advisor, Marcus asked. Too much? Probably. But we'll make it work. We? There was hope in her voice. Marcus looked at Lily, who was watching them both with those too perceptive eyes. What do you think, sweetheart? Want to help run an empire? Can we keep our apartment here too? Lily asked. I like the station, and Mr. Kowalski's pierogies. We'll keep quarters here, Thara promised. The station will always be home. The way she said home made Marcus's chest tight. When was the last time she'd had one? When was the last time any of them had, really? 6 months later, Marcus stood in the doorway of their new quarters, larger than the old apartment, with a view of the docking bay where official Draconian vessels came and went. But it still felt like home, mostly because Lily had immediately covered every surface with her drawings, and Thara had somehow made a nest in the corner with pillows and heat lamps. Papa? Thara's being weird again, Lily called from the main room. Marcus found Thara standing perfectly still in front of the wall display, watching a news feed about the latest trial. 17 nobles had been convicted so far, the trafficking ring dismantled piece by piece. But that wasn't what had her frozen. What's wrong? He asked. She gestured to the screen. A reporter was interviewing station residents about the Dragon Princess and the mechanic. Their story had become something of a legend, twisted and romanticized beyond recognition. They're saying that you and I... She trailed off, scales shifting through a spectrum of embarrassed colors. That we're together, Marcus supplied. Yeah, they've been saying that for months. It doesn't bother you? He considered the question. Did it? 6 months of working beside her, of watching her learn to lead with compassion rather than tradition. 6 months of shared meals, shared struggles, shared victories. 6 months of Lily calling Thara her dragon mum when she thought Marcus wasn't listening. No, he said honestly. Does it bother you? Her tail curled. A gesture he'd learned meant nervous uncertainty. I don't know how to... My species doesn't court the way humans do. How do Draconians court? Complicated rituals involving tests of strength, displays of wealth, ceremonial combat. She paused. Although I suppose we did the combat part already. Marcus laughed, really laughed, for the first time in so long. So we're doing it backwards. Everything about us is backwards. She moved closer, her wing brushing his shoulder. A mechanic and a princess, a human and a Draconian, a single father and an orphaned heir. Sam sounds like a bad romance vid, Marcus agreed, the kind Sarah used to love. You still miss her. Every day, but he looked at her, really looked. Scales that now shimmered healthy blue, golden eyes that had seen too much but still chose hope. Wings that sheltered his daughter as naturally as breathing. She would have liked you, would have wanted this. This, whatever this is, whatever we're building. Thara's tail curled around his wrist. The same gesture from that first night in the medical bay, but now familiar, comforting. The council wants me to take a proper mate. Political alliance, pure bloodline, all that. And And I told them I already had a family. Her scales shifted to deep purple. Embarrassment but also determination. If you'll have me. Us. The Empire and all its complications. Papa, just kiss her already, Lily shouted from where she was definitely not eavesdropping around the corner. Dragons don't kiss, Thara said, but her eyes were bright with amusement. Then what do dragons do? She leaned her forehead against his, careful of her horns, and breathed out slowly. Her breath was warm, carrying the faint scent of cinnamon and smoke. It was intimate in a way kissing had never been, a sharing of life itself. Oh, Marcus breathed. Is that acceptable? Yeah, he managed. Very acceptable. Good, because the delegation from the outer colonies will be here in an hour, and I need my senior advisor functional. You're terrible at romantic moments, Marcus informed her. I'm new at this, she defended, but I'm learning. She was. They all were. Learning how to be a family stitched together from loss and hope, from desperate choices that had somehow led to something better than any of them had imagined. The door chimed. Kowalski entered without waiting for permission, carrying a tray of pierogies and wearing his usual expression of amused exasperation. Heard you two finally figured it out, he said. Took you long enough. Half the stations had bets going for months. Bets? Thara's scales flickered with indignation. On when you'd make it official. Torres won, by the way. Said the princess would be the one to make the first move. Marcus looked at Thara, who was trying to look dignified and failing. Lily had emerged from her hiding spot, stealing pierogies with practiced efficiency. Kowalski was regaling them with stories of the betting pool, the merchant's elaborate theories about human draconian romance. This was his life now. Not the one he'd planned, not the one he'd had with Sarah, but something new. Something that had started with a wounded princess crashing through his shop door and asking for help. Something that had nearly killed them all but had somehow led to this, a makeshift family in borrowed quarters, changing an empire one trial at a time, finding joy in the spaces between responsibility. Hey, Thara said quietly, her tail still around his wrist. Thank you for that first night, for staying until dawn. Every dawn, Marcus promised, for as long as you need. Forever then. He thought of Sarah, who would have loved this, the absurdity and beauty of it, the way love found you when you least expected it, in forms you never imagined. She would have told him to hold on tight, to not let fear or propriety or the weight of the past stop him from embracing the future. Forever works, he said. Lily cheered through a mouthful of pierogi. Kowalski muttered something about young love and old fools. Thara's scales shimmered through a rainbow of colors. Marcus was still learning to read, but thought might mean happiness. Outside, the station turned on its axis, carrying thousands of souls through the dark. Ships came and went, carrying trade and passengers and news of the dragon princess who'd chosen a human mechanic, who'd burned herself nearly to death for a child not her own, who was changing an empire one act of compassion at a time. But inside their quarters, in the warmth of found family and chosen love, Marcus Chen held on, to his daughter, to his dragon, to the future they were building together. He held on until dawn, and then beyond, into whatever light the universe might bring. The dragon princess's soft request no longer made his blood run cold. It warmed him, like the fire she'd breathed to save them, like the love that had grown from the ashes of their separate grief.